learning outcome H, causes of movement along and shift in the aggregate demand and supply curve, AD and AS. AD and AS curve. So this is your price, this is your output. Which curve is this? Aggregate demand. Now imagine this is the current equilibrium. Okay, so let me call this as quantity 1. Now for some reason, let's call this as price 1. For some reason price has increased to P2, and an increase in price is going to result into Q2, let me call this Q2, but Q2 is on the left of Q1. So this is referred to as movement along the demand curve. So now movement part is very easy. Why will output change? Because the price is changing. End of the story. But imagine this now. So this is your aggregate demand curve. This is the current P1. This is current Q1. For some reason, aggregate demand curve move towards the right hand side. And now for the same price, you will have a larger quantity. This is referred to as the shift of the demand curve. So the learning outcome discusses about 4 things. The reason for movement along the AD and AS, which of course has to be because of changes in price, which is changes in inflation. And the reasons for shift in AD and shift in AS. Is that okay? And shift in AD and AS will be because of multiple exogenous factors. Correct? Why will aggregate demand increase at the same level of price? So income of the people increases, or reasons like this. So we are going to make a big list here. I think you can make this first. Do this quickly. Alright, so write down then reasons for shift in AD curve. Reasons for shift in AD curve. Okay, in bracket you are going to write down y is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So we are going to think in the context of this equation when we look at this point. So write down point number 1. Point number 1, increase in consumers' wealth. Increase in consumers' wealth. Okay. Now in that point, explanation is write down wealth higher. So show wealth is higher. Then make an arrow and say MPC is higher. And then make an arrow and say C is higher. And then make an arrow and say Y is higher. Okay, like this. If wealth is higher, then MPC is higher. MPC is higher than C is higher, and C is higher than Y has to be higher. So imagine for an individual, this is an individual, there are 2 individuals in fact. The first gentleman has a large amount of properties. Okay, so he has a big house for himself. He has a, what is this? He has a piece of land. And he has, ये तो 2-wheeler हो गया, but he has 4-wheelers. So he has a lot of properties. And the other person has nothing. Now, ये क्या है? अच्छा, उसके पास माँ है. कौन था ये? समझ में आ रहा है. So now both of them get additional income of 100. Additional income of 100. Now most probably this person will spend entire amount of additional income on, what is this? Milk consumption. Okay, but this person will put that entire money into savings, or maybe a big chunk of it in saving. So generally, higher the level of wealth, higher is the MPC, marginal propensity to consume, and higher level of MPC will result in higher level of C, consumption, and automatically C plus I plus G plus X minus M, C higher, GDP will be higher. Is that okay? Number 2, business expectation. Number 2, business expectation. Then you would write down like this: optimism, is that a word? How should I spell it? Is that correct? Okay, so optimism will result into higher I, and higher I will result into higher Y, and in bracket you can write down Keynes, Keynes, Keynes. So imagine markets are optimistic. When markets are optimistic, then business people will want to start investing because they are expecting that they will be able to generate revenue in the coming years. So automatically I will go up, and when the I goes up, automatically Y goes up. Is that okay? Keynes was a economist, right? So we'll be looking at Keynesian theory very soon in the subsequent readings. And then he was the one who said that it is the expectation of the people which drives the entire economy. Okay, so you manage expectation, your economy will always have an upswing. And therefore he very famously said, you should pay people to dig holes, and then you should also pay people to cover them up. Because the more money you throw in the hands of people, the more optimistic they get. The more optimistic they get, the more invest, more consumption, automatically economy keeps going up. Next point, consumer expectation of future income. Consumer expectation of future income. These are two guys. The first one is a CFA chartered holder, and the second one is not a CFA chartered holder. And this is their expectation of income. Okay, so this is time, this is income. So this person is expecting a level 3 result. This person is expecting his income to be like this. And imagine this person is a KPO employee, knowledge processing outsourced. So all the companies, without taking the name, and they're worried that newer technology will, or bots will eat up their jobs. And you must have heard, right? So there is automation happening throughout the world, and maybe a lot of these jobs would be eaten up by computers because everything would be automated. So this person feels this is what will happen. So this is again time, this is again income. Now both of them have a current income of 100. Okay, what do you think this person will do? Consume a large part of it. But what do you think this person will do? Save, because he is saving for the rainy days to come. So therefore, higher expectation of future income, higher consumption results into higher GDP. Write down them. I mean, you don't have to make this. Just say higher expectation of future income. Make an arrow and say C is higher, therefore Y is higher. So now you'll have to decide which person you want to be. And if you want to be this guy, then of course the starting point is to be able to pass CFA Level 1. For that, the starting point is to be able to score good in economics. And for that, the starting point is those people who are sleeping behind the pillar here. I said pillow. Alright, point number 4, higher capacity utilization. So again, two people. What is this? Okay, let me be What is this? These are hospitals, and imagine this. Okay, this is empty, this is empty. Now, who do you think will set up a new hospital? The first one or second one? So he will set up a new hospital. So set up a new hospital means I will go up, I will go up, Y will go up. So higher is the level of capacity utilization, higher would be the investments, higher would be the GDP. Okay. Point number 5, expansionary monetary policy. So in an expansionary monetary policy, R goes down. R goes down, C goes up, Y goes up, C goes up, C goes up, I goes up, Y will go up. Expansionary means central bank is trying to cut down on the rates. Okay, that's called monetary policy. We'll be learning that in next reading. So lower interest rate automatically will borrow more and buy more. Then businesses will borrow more, invest more. C will go up, I will go up, Y will go up. Are we okay here? Point number 6. Point number 6. Expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy. So, okay, now let's save time. Let us say taxes have gone down. Taxes have gone down. That means there is more money in the hands of you and me. So our consumption will increase, and consumption will increase. That means the GDP of a country will increase. So when the fiscal policy is expansionary, you're providing a stimulus to the economy, you will expect GDP to increase. Alright, next one, exchange rates. Exchange rates. Okay. So what is the current exchange rate for rupees and dollars? So let me round it off to 70. So 70 rupees for a dollar. Okay. Now imagine that Infosys currently is doing one project. The cost of that project to Infosys is 700,000 rupees. Okay. So in USD, what would be the amount it will bill? Come on, tell me, how much? $10,000. So 700,000 divided by 70 in USD, the amount billed to customer is $10,000. Now, Infosys in India is an exporter. Okay, it is exporting the services. Let us say an Apple phone. The cost of Apple phone is $1,000. In INR, the cost is how much? 70,000 rupees. Is that okay? Now let us say from 70 rupee has become rupees 100 for a dollar. So what do you think has happened to rupee? Has appreciated or depreciated? Are you sure? So rupee has depreciated. Okay, dollars have appreciated, but rupee has depreciated. Now see, think from the perspective of Infosys. Is its cost in rupee term going to change? Is its cost, because it is an Indian company doing business in India. So is its cost in rupee term going to change? No. But how much will it now bill to its clients on USD? So 700,000 divided by 100. How much is that? How much? 7,000. So 7,000 is the cost. Is it more competitive now? Yes or no? Because it's more competitive, can you expect that exports will go up? Yes or no? Yes. So whenever domestic currency depreciates, you're expecting that exports will go up. Is that okay? Now, I was consulting a company last year. Okay, it was a domestic company in boilers and those type of business. I was consulting them on risk management. But I observed that this organization to whom I was consulting, they had a lot of business projects in Indonesia, and for some reason their revenue from Indonesia had come down substantially. So I asked them what had gone wrong. And then they told me that their biggest competitor in this region was Russia. Okay, it was a engineering contract based company. So generally Chinese don't compete in those sphere. Chinese people compete on, you create a prototype and you create thousands and thousands and several 100,000 of those products and sell. But Chinese people do not generally compete on engineering type of projects. Okay, so their biggest competition was Russia. And then in that year, the Russian currency had depreciated significantly more than Indian rupee. So because Russian currency had depreciated, Russian companies had that advantage. Right? So most of the Russian engineering companies took away that business from Indian engineering companies. Are you following this? So when your currency depreciates, your exports will go up. Now let us look at the cost of phone in INR. Earlier it was 70,000. How much will that be now? 100,000. And has that phone become more expensive? So will you expect demand to decrease in India? That means your imports are going to come down. And now think of it this way. So currency depreciated. Currency has depreciated. So your X has gone up. Your M has gone down. X minus M has gone up. You will expect GDP of a country to increase. Okay, write down fast. Okay. Point number 8, global economic growth. Global economic growth. And then say higher global economic growth. Higher global economic growth. Make an arrow and say X will be higher. And if X is higher, then Y will be higher. Higher X result in higher Y. Okay. Then next larger heading, shifts in AS curve. Shifts in, so do not write AS, say SRAS, short run aggregate supply curve. Shift in short run aggregate supply curve. Okay, so in the short term, what will increase GDP of a country? That's what we are talking about. So that is a shift in short run aggregate supply curve. Point number 1, labor productivity. So what do you think? Labor productivity higher, what will be the impact on GDP? Supply would be higher. Then point number 2, input prices. Then here you would write decrease in input prices, make an arrow and say increase in Y. Decrease in input prices, make an arrow and say Y is increase. Then point number 3, expectation of future output prices. Okay, we are on the supply side now, not demand. Expectation of future output prices. So if you think that you can sell your output at a higher price, then automatically Y will increase. So expectation of future output prices, make an upward arrow, then saying that it's going to increase, and then show that Y will increase. Then point number 4, taxes. Point number 4, taxes. Then say tax decrease, Y increase. When taxes will decrease, Y will increase. Fairly straightforward. As a supplier, I have more incentive. Are we okay here? Then point number 5, exchange rate. Okay, now we are going to write this strictly as per the CFA exam syllabus. So write down appreciation of domestic currency. Appreciation of domestic currency. Make an arrow and say decrease cost of imports. Then make an arrow and say decreased production cost. And then make an arrow and say increase in Y. Increase in Y. Decrease production cost, which will result in increase in Y. Okay, same stuff. Like think of oil and gas. Okay, oil and gas. Imagine that price of a liter of petrol is $1. Okay, after taking care of everything, it's net $1. So in Indian rupee, that's how much? 70. Now, what if Indian rupee appreciates? From 70, the exchange rate becomes 50. The current exchange rate is 70 for a dollar. What if it becomes 50? Then what would be the price of petrol in rupee terms? 50. will the manufacturing cost go down? Yes. And if the cost goes down, then you will expect supply to increase, as in Y to increase. Are we okay? So demand and supply, exchange rate had opposite effect. Correct? When currency depreciated, Y increased on a demand curve. But when currency appreciated, Y will increase on supply curve. Okay. Now, next point, shift in the long run aggregate supply curve. Shift in the long run aggregate supply curve. Point number 1. Now we are thinking long term. Imagine 10, 15 years, 20 years horizon. What are those indicators which will change the GDP? So point number 1, increase in supply and quality of labor. Increase in supply and quality of labor. Makes sense? Larger the quantity of labor available at disposal, higher would be your GDP in the long run. And on top of that, quality of labor matters. Okay, so imagine we have so many new projects launched by Government of India which emphasize on skill. Okay, the reason why there is so much of emphasis on skill, so it's basically P into Q. Think of it this way: P is the price of that labor, Q is in the quantity of that labor. Now, increase in quantity means increase in population. Correct? So we, as a country which is already overpopulated, we cannot afford to work on Q. But what we can afford to work on is the price. So if you enhance the skill level of the existing labor, then automatically that price per hour of revenue that these guys are generating will be larger, and automatically GDP of the country will increase. That's the whole idea with Skill India mission. Point number 2, increase in supply of natural resources. Increase in supply of natural resources. Okay, so some time back I was in this city called Johannesburg, and have you heard of it? South Africa. And then I got to know there that it was the only large city in the world which did not have any natural water body supporting it. I mean, generally all the big cities in the world, either they will be an ocean city, or there would be a river, or there would be a lake. Johannesburg was the only city where there was no natural water body available. And then why the city became so big? Because there were gold reserves. Okay, so there were gold, and now they have platinum there. So that was exploited by the Europeans for multiple years, and that's why the settlement shifted to Johannesburg, and of course the city became big. But the whole idea is, imagine if we discover that there's a gold mine right here in Pune, maybe right below our office, and imagine it's the largest gold mine in the world that we discover now, hypothetical gold reserves in the world. Do you think GDP of the country will go up? Yes, so increase in natural resources, GDP will improve. Now in this context, you need to know something called as the Dutch disease. Dutch disease. So this term was coined by the magazine Economist. Okay. And the idea is like this. So it was in Netherlands, which is, the people there are called Dutch. So Netherlands, they discovered oil and gas reserves in certain part of the country. And for a few years, the entire government focused only and only on that industry and nothing else. Okay, so for temporary there was a spike in the GDP, but because they emphasized only on one particular sector and nothing else, after some time when the results were depleted, the other sectors in the economy were affected negatively. So Dutch disease is, they say that if an economy has focus only and only on natural resources, it might happen that other industries which are not linked to natural resources will not be taken care of, and therefore the GDP in the long term will be affected negatively. Classic example here is what's happening to Brazil right now. So I don't know if you know this, but there was this gentleman, I forgot his name. He was the seventh most richest person in the world, Brazilian. He was a business magnate, and his total net worth was about 32 or 33 billion dollars. And that was a time when there was a commodity boom. Okay, and then in the last couple of years the commodity prices have fallen drastically, so much that now his net worth is about $1 billion. Okay, and then recently this person was put to jail because he was involved in some corruption type of activities in Brazil. So nevertheless, this is what happens to economies when there is too much of dependence on natural resources. Another example, Saudi Arabia. Okay, which brand of Saudi Arabia you're aware of apart from the oil and gas business there? I mean, which all big companies has it produced apart from those sectors? There's nothing, because the emphasis of the country all these years was only on one particular sector. So that's called Dutch disease. Are we okay with this? Then third point, increase in stock of physical capital, which is kind of easier to understand. The reason why we want Apple to start production in India, and why do we want Tesla Motors to come to India? So they bring in that money, they invest into the physical capital, which generates employment, consumption, investment, everything increases. Point number 4, technology. Point number 4, technology. And here you can think of Israel. Okay, so they might not have anything else. They might not have a lot of large level of natural resources. Neither do they have large quantity of labor, constraints with everything else. But because they have substantially better technology in everything that they do, the economy is done good so far. So better technology, better GDP.